Welcome everyone, and you are listening to The Last Dinosaur, and I'm your host, Chris Aversano. On today's edition of Tell Me More Tuesday, we're going to talk about a maritime topic that's related to the last few podcasts where we've covered Laytime, Demurrage, and Laycan, and that is called Notice of Readiness, or NOR. You actually may have heard me use that term in earlier episodes. Our digital topic is something that's more of a philosophy used in technology, and that is what is Agile method of development versus what the Waterfall method is. We're going to talk briefly about both and compare and contrast what they are. But first, let's talk Notice of Readiness, our maritime topic of the podcast. I've mentioned NOR in the context of the topics of episode 16, Laycan, and episode 18, Laytime and Demurrage. If you haven't had a chance to listen to those, you don't need to listen to them now, but maybe right after this one is done, and that'll give you a bigger and better appreciation of what's going on and how they're all related. NOR, or Notice of Readiness, in short, tells everyone who's involved in the voyage and the movement of the goods that the ship has on board that the ship is in the right place to perform the voyage. I'm going to paraphrase from a resource that I found, which is something put out by the West P&I Club and their description of the NOR, and they go further and says it has two purposes. One is to inform the charters that the vessel is at their disposal, and two is to start the running of the hire or lay time. I've included the link to the resource in the show notes. Although the issuing of the NOR seems fairly clear-cut and straightforward, like many other charter party terms, or that's the terms that govern the ships, the voyage, there's a lot of things that can go wrong or a lot of points of contention. So let's take a look at some of the things that can be challenged at the NOR. One thing is, are you in the right or customary place to tender the NOR? Is it valid and on time? What if the ship claims to be ready and isn't? All those items are covered in the attached in the PDF that you can find in the show notes. For example, if you have an owner of a chemical tanker tenders an NOR and the tanks are found not to be clean per the charter party, what happens? These are the things that the charter party has to go through and people who negotiate have to kind of think about. So if you're not dealing with this, why should you care, right? I don't really deal with it. What does it matter to me? I think that if you have a fuller understanding of all the terms and phrases around this topic, it can give you a good understanding of the complexities. And if you're building software or you're marketing something, knowing how they all fit in definitely gives you a little bit more of insight into what's going on for the people who are day to day. Now, the digital or technology topic is covering the philosophical differences between Agile versus Waterfall and trying to boil down this very complex target. Again, you have classes on this. You have, I don't even know if you can get degrees in this, but certainly if you're taking a business processes and you're covering this in university or college, you're going to talk about this. You're going to have classes or at least extensive topics on this. So I'm going to miss some things, but in short, here's what I'd like for you guys, especially on the maritime side, to understand. In general, Agile is known as a methodology that's more flexible and has more elements of the process being collaborative internally and externally with clients. In contrast to Waterfall is a sequential methodology, meaning there's less flexibility in the outcome. There is some collaboration, don't get me wrong, but the tasks are handled in a linear process with defined goals from the start. Again, if you're a shipping person, why should you care? Why should you care or understand this? I get it. You just want your software, which is a good point, but you have to kind of know what the company's philosophy is. So think of it this way. The Agile process allows for the software team to push out users' ideas that are closer to final product and always have the ability to make iteration and making the product improvements based on feedback, internal and external. Where Waterfall dictates that once the product's pushed out, it's done. So if there's a need for an adjustment or addition, it has to be revisited completely. In the Agile process, it's an iterative process, a circular process that continually is looked at for improvements. Think about it this way. Here's a good example. Let's say if you have some software with all the new emissions rules, well, you may have built that software 2 years ago. And as the emission rules changed, if you're in Waterfall, you're not going to be able to keep up with all the changes. But if you're in Agile, you're constantly putting out the new idea, hearing what the users have to say, listening to what regulations have to say, and then making that improvement based on the user's needs that could be changing with all the different regulations, right? That's where Agile becomes a little bit more interesting and something that you as a user will need to know. An interesting twist to all of this, and I don't know if you guys have followed this, Maersk Tankers earlier in the year said that they're going to employ an agile philosophy of chartering and managing their fleets. One of the first things that they did was to outsource their technical management. And I'm really curious to see how this methodology evolves over time, and will it be adopted and adapted by other pools and shipping companies? Stay tuned. I've also included a nice article about the difference between Agile and Waterfall in the show notes. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this installment of Tell Me More Tuesdays. Please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to the podcast. I'm your host, Chris Aversano, wishing you fair winds and following seas.